Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be back at Hack Season and be part of this tour. Hope you all are having a great time here in Singapore. And I think, things have definitely changed. I want to sort of put some context around our conversation today. I'm really honored to be here with Yatsu, who is the chairman of Animoca Brands. They do so much more than gaming, which is what they were known for many years, with over 600 investments in the space. Yat has a unique perspective on their industry and is a true tastemaker, change maker. So every time I talk to you, I get some kind of insight. So always great to have this conversation. To frame the conversation today, just a couple of facts that I think caught my attention. Public company Bitcoin treasuries at this point have gone past 1 million BTC in holdings. 65% of institutional investors say they're likely to invest in a crypto ETP, showing demand for regulated access. And the 2025 Crypto Global Adoption Index shows not only big countries like America, but the emerging markets like Ukraine and Moldova and Georgia becoming leaders in the space or growing their demand. Lastly, 79% of respondents expect crypto prices to rise, and 68% rank crypto as the top risk-adjusted return opportunity. So I think we're well past the days of crypto being taboo, and now the question is what next? So yeah, with that said, the surge in Bitcoin in the balance sheets held by companies not only in the US but globally, what is different about this moment that's created so much momentum?
Well, I mean, I think it's obvious in some ways, right? Regulatory certainty is one thing. And I don't mean certainty because the rules are all in place, but certainty that you're not going to basically sort of get a hard slap because you basically you sort of said the word token. That's kind of one thing. But I think the other thing also is that it just demonstrates that there was all such pent-up demand. What we see in the US, people wanted to buy crypto, and it's young people that want to do that as well, but they weren't able to do so because it was disallowed or was restricted and so forth. And I think that's basically all opened up. So it's very welcoming. And of course, it's showing the way to the rest of the world, because if the world's largest economy is embracing crypto the way that they are, then all the other economies that are doing business with America have to adopt it too. And if they don't, they're going to get left behind. So it's kind of this sort of network effect, if you will, that's building out in the space above and beyond the token, but actually on a national scale.
Makes sense. And with respect to real-world assets, when did Animoca Brands and yourself start to look at them seriously, and what opportunities do they unlock for adoption across the industry overall?
Yeah, I mean, we're involved in a stablecoin in Hong Kong with a joint venture between us and Standard Chartered and Hong Kong Telecom called Anchor Point. And that process really started 2.5 years ago. And when we look at RWAs, actually RWAs, and then maybe just briefly on tokenization. When you tokenize something, anything, whether it's something like a meme coin, or a gaming asset, or a stablecoin, what you're really doing is you're expanding the network power of that asset, right? So think about the dollar as a stablecoin. The dollar is now more distributed and has more reach than ever before, not as a store of value, but I would say basically as a kind of influence, almost like a store of influence. Because 150 to 200 million people around the world who would not normally be dollarized are now dollarized, which means you've expanded the sort of economy of the US dollar. And so that's actually true for any kind of RWA, whether it's real estate, whether it's art, whether it's royalties. Once you tokenize it, you actually extend it to a much wider audience, because you can reach someone in Africa and you can reach someone in America. And just most recently, Solana and Republic, which they announced, I think 2 days ago, they tokenized actually Animoca Brands equity, right? As a mechanism for a company that's both in crypto and in traditional
Did they give you a heads up at least?
Yeah, they gave us a heads up. So I gave it a favorable tweet.
But that's about all they could do. Is like, exactly. By the way, we're doing this.
But exactly, because it's some other shareholders basically said, hey, we want to tokenize equity because it's their asset. And I see this as a really interesting moment for RWAs, for instance, with startups or technology companies. You may not want to launch a token, but now when you tokenize your security, you open up yourself to the token market. So it's very exciting.
So, I mean, the first sort of idea of fractionalization for me came from, of course, the Beeple purchase and the idea of fractionalizing that art. This is possible for a while. What is it about fractionalization where it needed more time to mature?
Well, I mean, I think fractionalization in and of itself is nothing new. When you look at real estate, essentially buying a REIT is effectively a unit of real estate, so that's not
Yeah.
new in itself. It just has to do with the compliance and the regulations around it. And before you could even get there, you were essentially sort of previously, because it was a token, people basically, and it involved the word crypto, people were already against it. That has changed now, right? So I think you needed that moment to have there. The second thing is the size of the market. So, you could have launched an RWA 7 years ago. There was no market because there was no buyer, because
Yeah.
nobody had crypto wealth.
Well, I mean, and it was very sort of tight, locked exchanges that, for accredited investors only.
Yes, that's right. That's one thing. And the second thing is that, the people who would buy it typically might be the people who are already in crypto, which was very small comparatively speaking. And that's the other thing I tell people as well, why should you look at crypto? Let's say you don't want to launch a token, that's fine, you don't have to tokenize. Actually, it's an entirely new wealth class. Like every person who's made money on Ethereum, on Bitcoin, whatever. I mean, just think about events like this here or token, right? They're flying all over the world, paying tickets, coming in, staying at five-star hotels. Why? Because they probably made some money on Bitcoin and Ethereum, or working for a company that's made money this way. It's a new wealth class. And this is the same, all around. Like Chinese tourists before, like countries used to say, we don't want Chinese tourists. Now everyone wants Chinese tourists. Why? Because they have money, because they can spend. Or name your nation, right? What I'm saying is that it's a kind of community. So you need to look at it as a market opportunity as well, independent of whether you want to tokenize that. And so why, when you turn it into an RWA, now you have a market that's not just TradFi, but is essentially the crypto land of users who might buy the asset. You're reaching out to them.
So it feels like we're hitting a new tipping point, to use a Malcolm Gladwell term, in terms of this idea that you need to be a proponent of tokenization of equity and assets as a company to get a upper leg when it comes to sort of levers and alpha. You got AI, you got this, and it's almost like we're coming to a point where if you're not doing it, you're going to be left behind. How close are we to that point, and what are some of the sort of dreamy aspirations you have for what happens on the tokenization side, both within the Animoca brand's company portfolio and beyond over the next coming years?
Yeah, so first, I think broadly speaking, I think it's just a couple of years away where companies that are able to take advantage of blockchain, crypto, and tokenization are going to have a leg up against those that don't. And if you remember, for those of you old enough, there used to be this thing called digital literacy, right? As in, I remember, back in 1997 and 98, I had to print my email to my boss because he didn't know how to use a computer, right? So I had to give it to him literally in paper, right? Because he treated it like a fax machine. But those people today wouldn't make it, right? And if you're a company that's selling goods and you're not on Amazon, you're probably not going to make it. And if you're trying to be a media company and you're not on Instagram, TikTok, you're not going to make it. Basically, today, every business has to be somewhat digitally literate. And what's happening with crypto is because everything becomes a financial asset, right? And it's this financification that might seem for some a bit of a turnoff, but in reality, everything becomes a capital asset. That means you need to be able to have the financial literacy and knowledge to take advantage of that. And if you don't, your competitor will, and you basically kind of left behind. Because the engine of tokenization, imagine if you're, I don't know, let's say you're a seller of goods, okay? Or let's say a video game. And one video game now has the ability to transact in stablecoins. Just something simple, right? You open up 200 million people in the world that are in Africa, South America, and whatever, that your competitor does not. It's not even about whether you have a token. You just have an advantage because you're reaching to an audience that you wouldn't have normally been able to. That's just one example, right? Or, if you are doing an RWA and you want to sell real estate. Well, one company is selling a REIT in the local country, another one is tokenizing it and making it available to every person in the world to purchase. And that's basically what happened with the internet, right? If you were a media company and you didn't use the internet, you went out of business, right? And so that's basically exactly the same thing. If you are sort of not looking at blockchain and tokenization, I think you're going to have a very big disadvantage, because even if you feel fine, a competitor of yours is going to go and say, I can use this framework to basically eat your lunch, and they will.
So there's potential for healthier competition, but I can also imagine if you have like AI agents helping you make these decisions, it could be sort of like an episode of the Jetsons where they announce that one sky lane is clear, and then everyone goes there, and then it's all congested. You have like a Fidelity product that's overbought. How do we sort of ensure that this economy has viscosity, but we're not so intelligent, so automated that we start sort of pushing certain products and everyone else gets left behind?
I actually would argue that an AI does exactly the opposite, because if it's actually a good AI, it's going to realize that it's overbought, and it's going to say...
It's going to be 5 chess moves ahead.
Exactly, and then it's going to say, you know, not anymore. If it didn't get in, it's going to say, you know what, I think better you don't do that, right? And it's going to be able to take the emotions where feelings don't come into play, which is actually the strength of humans as feelings, but it's also our weakness, right? But also, think about AI. I mean, it's a good point you raised about AI, because the natural currency of AI is going to be a token asset. And they're going to be trading 24/7 when you're asleep. And so imagine if you don't have an asset that's tokenized. That means the entire agentic AI ecosystem is not available to you as a result. Because they're not going to be trading on Robinhood. They're not going to have a stock account on the, you know, that can trade on NASDAQ. Maybe they can, but it has to be very custom, right? Here on a token ecosystem, it's everything. And so when you talk about sort of tokenized securities, that's actually a much better and healthier way. And if you think that there's going to be millions and millions, maybe even billions of AI agents trading, you want to make sure that your assets, whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's a token, that's a network token, or whether it's an RWA or a stablecoin, whatever it is accessible to that market in the future.
You want to be available. You want to be, they can turn to that channel, they can play that game.
It's distribution.
Makes sense. So, all right, you guys get your thinking caps on. It's in the afternoon. Everyone needs to sort of participate in this. So, there's been a lot of altcoin bashing or concerns this cycle. By a show of hands, we'll vote how many people think that altcoins are going to see the market cap of Bitcoin over the next 5 years, and how many don't. So first, if you do, if you're a believer, altcoins are going to come back, raise your hand. All right. And how many people are disbelievers? Just to make sure you're paying attention, raise your hand. If you do not believe altcoins are going to, okay, about equal, and then a lot of uncertainty. Yeah, I know you have a hot take here, so let's hear it.
Yeah, I mean, my hot take is that altcoins collectively are going to be larger than Bitcoin. But let me just explain my thinking around this, right? Which is, it's not to say that Bitcoin won't be the single largest asset class in digital assets and in crypto. We believe it always will be. So I hold a big bag of Bitcoin, not selling, just to be clear, right? But my lens is like gold. Bitcoin is digital gold. So that means that if you look at the market cap of gold today, it's about $25 trillion, right? Which is really, really big, right? It's bigger than Apple, it's bigger than Facebook, it's bigger than Google, it's huge. But when you take all of the public companies put together, that's 128 trillion. When you look at all the other assets, about 300 trillion. Overall, the entire asset space is 900 trillion, and gold is 25 trillion, right? And why is that? Where are we growing? Where is the innovation? Where is the activity? It's in Facebook, Google, Apple, and in crypto, where is the activity? It's in altcoins, right? Whether it's something whimsical like Pengu, or abstract, or Sand, or whether it's something like Telegram with Ton, or Ethereum, Solana, like whatever you want to name it, all these ecosystems are the ones bringing in people. Could be NFTs as well. They're the ones using them. Now, the other thing is that because these are inflationary systems, they bring people in. How do you make a system welcoming? It's you basically do that kind of a network effect where you offer them an ability to enter the system. You are creating inflation, but then as a result, you're bringing them into the ecosystem and making them grow. So collectively, and there's a question of which altcoins, that's a different story. Because I know a lot of people are saying, oh, altcoins has been terrible. Maybe your altcoins have been doing terrible. But there's a whole bunch of other altcoins that have been doing well. And so this is not the question of which altcoin, but to say collectively altcoins are going to eclipse Bitcoin. And it's good for Bitcoin because what you notice is that when the people have made money on altcoins, they put it in their crypto savings account, and that is Bitcoin.
Yeah, really interesting perspective there. I can't help but think that there's a Dogecoin ETF coming to a theater near you soon.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is the thing about DATs. By the way, this is the institutionalization. You see it now today. It started with Bitcoin. then you have Ethereum, and now it's going all the way downstream to other
Yeah,
tokens.
in fact, you have an announcement yesterday at Animoca Portco Day. Full disclosure, Edge is a Portco company of Animoca brands. Why don't you share that? Because I think it's really
Yeah.
fascinating
Yes.
to prove this point.
Yeah. So sort of Alphaton basically acquired Gamey or announced an acquisition, which is basically a Web3 gaming company.
And AlphaTon is a new pubco.
It's a pubco for Ton Dat. And so what they're doing is they're basically bringing the gaming assets of this Telegram gaming system called Gamey basically into the DAT, giving it utility, it's making profit, having revenue, and then acquiring the tokens of that particular project, which is called Gamey, GMEE. And it's interesting because it's actually demonstrating how you can now take basically institutional appeal into other asset areas. And so I believe all major or even credible, shall we say, token ecosystems are going to be looking for that kind of route. And it's not because you want to be able to say, hey, here's a system that's going to buy tokens. It's financial engineering. That's not it. It's that it gives a kind of accountability and trust to TradFi, right? I mean, it needed to have something like a Tom Lee, or you had Joe Lubin on stage, basically to say, okay, I can buy ETH, but I'd rather buy shares in a company that buys ETH because if there's a problem, I have someone to call, someone to be accountable for, right? And it's that trust and accountability that we need in TradFi, and basically being public, whether it's ETF, NASDAQ, DAT, or whatever, is the mechanism to get there.
Right on. So if this isn't enough sort of proof that this world is colliding, really excited to share the stage with you in Washington, D.C. On October 29th and 30th, the Edge Up Company is hosting the Future of Money, of Governance, Money, and the Law Summit, actually at the U.S. Capitol. We can't say that publicly. We say Capitol Hill, but to all of you, we're going to actually be having a summit in the U.S. Capitol. What does that tell you about sort of where we're at, and why did you choose to sort of be part of this event?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's fair to say that I think certainly for the next couple of years, if not for much longer, America is going to be the center of crypto, right? And being in Washington is super important. If you think about what the Genius Act and, of course, the Clarity Act is trying to do for the rest of the world, it's going to force everyone basically to do something else. How many countries around the world are now thinking we need a stablecoin something because of the Genius Act, for instance, right? Some places like Hong Kong have been slightly ahead, but most other countries are basically just scrambling to figure it out. And also for tokenization, right? American companies, post-Clarity, are going to all tokenize something. And so other countries around the world are like, okay, how do I deal with that, right? So it's very important to be there and also to help shape the conversation because it's, even though America, we believe, will be the center of it, especially New York and I guess to some extent Washington, it is a global thing. And so we have to be there to represent the global stage as well.
Well, thank you for sharing your insights today. Thank you for joining us in Washington. For those of you interested in coming to DC, you're all invited. It's gbaglobal.com, and you can RSVP for an event. And then please follow Yacht, please follow Animoca Brands. If you want to check out more content like this, my show's called The Edge of Show. Just Google us on all channels. Thank you again.
Thank you.